He is already a rock star, so he doesn't need to break guitars on stage to show it. People will remember him even if there are no incidents, social media buzz, or shocking things said about him. Bill Gibbons, with his chest-length beard, dark shades, and always present Les Paul, has been an unmistakable symbol of Southern American rock culture for more than 50 years. Gibbons is the lead singer of ZZ Top, a band that changed the way Texas-style blues rock was played. He is also a great guitarist and the perfect example of staying true to your musical identity. He doesn't want to change with the times like many artists do. Instead, he stays true to himself, hanging on to his groove, vocals, and soul. Interestingly, the fact that he won't change has made him unique. Billy Gibbons stands out not for what he's done, but for what he hasn't. In the crazy world of rock, fame often means destroying things. No drug abuse, bad relationships, breakdowns, or leaving the band in the middle of a tour. There is only one thing that stays the same: making music. But there is a trip behind the calm appearance, the silver beard, and the rough voice. He went from being a boy who loved Elvis to being the last member of ZZ Top. From being famous all over the world to losing his best friend, he went through a lot. From a studio artist to an American icon who is still alive. The big question is, why has Billy Gibbons been able to stay alive while the rock world around him has lost so many legends? The story that comes next has the answer. Childhood. Bill Gibbons was born in Houston, Texas, on December 16, 1949. He was born into a middle-class family with deep artistic roots, not in a poor area or a remote part of the country. Frederick Royal Gibbons was his father. He led an orchestra and ran a theater and had worked for MGM Studios. Music wasn't a luxury in that home. It was air. It was words. In Billy's childhood, it was the one thing that was always at every meal and in every dream. The first time Billy saw Elvis Presley live was in 1955, when he was only 5 years old. The scared little boy in the crowd was shocked by what he saw. A man who, with just a few notes, could light up an entire theater. He remembered more than just the sound of the guitar. He remembered the stage lights, the sweat, the screams, and what he would later call the real life of rock and roll. Soon after, Billy learned to play the drums. When he was in his early teens, he moved to the guitar. He got his first instrument, a Gibson Melody Maker, as a gift. This was the start of a journey that no one thought would last 6 decades. But even more important than the guitar, Billy grew up in a musically rich setting, from his dad's jazz to the Texas street blues to the new wave of rock in California. As a teen, Billy went to the Hollywood Professional School, which is a part-time school for artists to be. There, he trained with famous people like Liza Minnelli and, more importantly, got to see how big Hollywood recording studios work from the inside. It was here that he started to play around with fuzz effects, tube amps, and the dirty sound that would become ZZ Top's signature. There were no bad things that happened to Billy Gibbons as a child, but there also wasn't a clear road for him to follow. If you are born into a family that has everything they need, desire is the only thing that will make you stand out. But for Gibbons, that love was in every riff of B.B. King, every shaking Jimmy Reed note, and every guitar roar trying to be heard in a world full of noise. Billy Gibbons didn't try to run away as a child. He grew up running toward music, which helped him form his artistic personality early on. There were no bad habits as a child. It was the childhood of someone who already knew. It didn't matter how loud the music was, it had to feel good. From that feeling came the rise of a famous but quiet musician. Early in your work. A lot of young people in the US were into anti-war groups and psychedelic music in the late 1960s. But Billy Gibbons, who was only 20, started his own band called the Moving Sidewalks. The band was rock, but they were more into acid rock. Had a big impact on Jimi Hendrix and Cream. In 1968, they put out a single record called Flash. But it wasn't just the music that got people's attention, it was the unique bond between Gibbons and Jimi Hendrix. A guitarist known for having a very good ear, Hendrix, said on the Mike Douglas show that Billy Gibbons is one of the best young players in America. People don't always pay attention to compliments. But when it came from Hendrix, everyone in the music world looked at the young man from Texas. But the moving streets were only there for a short time. Gibbons went back to his roots in Southern blues because the psychedelic rock scene was too crowded and he wanted to do something more stable. That led to the start of a new thought. A trio that sounds like a whole army, even though they only have 3 people. ZZ Top was formed in 1969, with Dusty Hill on bass and Frank Beard on drums. Like many other bands, the band started out by playing shows in bars and neighborhood arenas before big-name acts. But Gibbons had a clear idea from the start. He didn't want ZZ Top to be just another blues band. It was something he wanted to become a sign of the American South. It was music that made you think of gas stations, dusty roads, cold beers, and hot summer nights. The band ZZ Top's first record came out in 1971. It showed something important, even though it didn't change the market. This band had its own style, with simple riffs that stuck together like glue and a sound that was dripping with Texas spirit in every note. Billy Gibbons' plan wasn't very loud. He decided to build slowly, one album and one tour at a time, until ZZ Top became a household name in the United States. It wasn't overnight success. The sound was like the hum of a diesel engine, deep and steady. It was quiet but clear. And in the middle of it all was Billy, who played the guitar, made the riffs, and set the band's unique look with his long beard, dark glasses, and silver-trimmed cowboy clothes. He didn't just play music, he made himself and his bandmates into a live brand. Their trio would become one of the most famous rock bands of all time. At first, ZZ Top played blues music, then boogie music, and over time, they became an important force in American music. Bill Gibbons had one very easy idea that led to everything, from dusty bars in Texas to the biggest stages in the world. We don't need more people. We just need the right people. And one guitar that looks and sounds good. Success in your job. While the 1970s were important for building ZZ Top, the 1980s were when Billy Gibbons and his band were at the top of their game, both musically and as a cultural force. This is the age of synth pop, MTV, and neon-lit stages. How did a three-piece blues rock band become famous all over the world? Gibbons' musical soul and visual vision are at the heart of the answer. They are a masterful mix of old and new, performed in a way that never loses the original spirit. When Tres Hombres came out in 1973, it took ZZ Top from the American South to the rest of the world. La Grange, a mean blues riff that was based on a famous brothel, became one of the most famous rock songs of all time. But that was only the start. It's not just that Billy Gibbons was a great guitarist. As an artist, he knew how to package music. In 1983, ZZ Top released Eliminator, which was a big step forward in the band's success at a time when MTV was changing the way people watched rock music. With hits like Sharp Dressed Man, Gimme All Your Lovin', and Legs, ZZ Top not only ruled the radio waves, but also TV screens with bright, funny music videos that featured old cars, beautiful women, and two bearded men in dark shades who became instantly familiar symbols. It was one of the best-selling records of the decade, selling over 10 million copies in the US. This was what made it even more unique. Even though ZZ Top's music has computer parts, it has never lost its roots. Gibbons stuck to his signature gravelly vocals, catchy, stripped-down blues riffs, and a stage presence that was almost still but gave off an air of power. From 1983 to 1990, ZZ Top was a multi-platform star. They were in ads, movies, and even Lego figurines, and they were pretty much everyone's favorite rock band. The band was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2004. Along with Rush and the Police, they are thought to be one of the most famous trios in music history. Billy Gibbons was always in charge of ZZ Top's sound, produced their music, and made all the final decisions. He didn't have to yell to show that he was in charge. The sound of his guitar was loud enough to make people be quiet. Gibbons' solos weren't just technical showstoppers. Fans thought he was talking through the strings because of the signature delay that was in all of them. During this time, Billy also broadened his horizons by producing other artists and working with bands like Slash and Queens of the Stone Age. He even played Angela Montenegro's father on the TV show Bones, introducing his persona to a new generation without changing who he was. One thing that has made Billy Gibbons a big name in the ever-changing world of pop music is that he never changes. He never changed by taking down what was old. He just kept looking into it until everyone understood that sometimes the old is the only thing that lasts. Gibbons doesn't think speed or note count matter when it comes to the best guitar tune. Like how he's led ZZ Top, not loudly, but in a way that can't be replaced. It's about being clear, determined, and in the right place. Trying times and hard times. In rock music, bands usually break up after a few years because of money problems, egos, or drug problems. The fact that ZZ Top has been together for over 50 years is nothing short of amazing. And that miracle was built around a bond, a brotherhood. Billy Gibbons and Dusty Hill. But that link was broken all of a sudden in the summer of 2021. For Gibbons, it wasn't just a loss of a person, it was a hole in his music that could never be filled. Along with Gibbons, Dusty Hill helped start the band and was a member for a long time. He died peacefully in his Houston home on July 28, 2021. The short message on ZZ Top's Facebook page was a big deal for Billy, whose life had been pretty calm up until that point. The man didn't cry for the cameras or say a long speech. He just kept a simple promise. "Stick with the game," Dusty told me. From Rolling Stone in 2021, "Don't stop because of me." In music, no one can really take the place of another. Gibbons kept his promise, though. A few days after Dusty's death, he went on tour again with Elwood Francis, who had been Dusty's bass tech for a long time. The stage lights stayed on and the riffs kept roaring, but Dusty's bass no longer had that steady, unwavering pulse that had held Gibbons in place through every beat. It was too quiet for Gibbons to hide. As a way to remember Dusty, he brought one of his bass guitars onto the stage from backstage. He kept looking to the left side of the stage, where Dusty used to stand, every night, as if he was still listening for his friend's notes. ZZ Top was often called conservative because they stuck to the same old blues rock sound and didn't want to change like other bands did. Billy Gibbons, on the other hand, never changed to follow the crowd. "I play for fun, not to win. I play to stay true to my sound," he once told Guitar World. Even when experimenting with electronics on Eliminator or adding modern flavors to his solo albums, Gibbons stuck to his core philosophy: simplicity, slowness, but always groove and emotion. Unlike many rock stars who chase media attention, Billy Gibbons has mostly stayed out of the spotlight when not on stage. He lives in Texas in the desert, collecting vintage cars and odd artifacts, rarely sharing his private life. Some have called him a reclusive eccentric, others just overly reserved. But in truth, Gibbons has simply chosen a classic way of life, one not dictated by social media or fleeting trends. When you keep your silence in everyday life, your guitar speaks louder than any interview. He doesn't need to shock. He doesn't need to fight aging, and perhaps that's why Billy Gibbons, though not a weekly headline, remains one of the most universally respected figures in rock. Throughout his career, Billy Gibbons has managed to avoid most of the pitfalls laid by the music industry. Drugs, internal feuds, controversial sound bites. But no one escapes life's rules. Loss, loneliness, and silent trials. He's just chosen to face them in the only way he knows: by playing on and letting the music speak. Personal life. In a world where rock stars regularly make headlines for divorces, scandalous affairs, or self-destructive lifestyles, Billy Gibbons is almost a complete anomaly. He's not caught at flashy nightclubs, nor does he post affectionate photos with young lovers on social media. His private life, over more than 50 years in the spotlight, remains a soft veil. Private enough to be impenetrable, but sincere enough for those close to him to feel its depth. Gibbons married Gilligan Stillwater in 2005, at the age of 56. There was no extravagant wedding, no press coverage documenting their vows. They had loved each other quietly for nearly 2 decades before finally calling each other husband and wife only when they knew each other beyond the need for promises. Gilligan is not a rock wife in the typical sense. She rarely appears publicly and has never used her husband's fame for attention. Perhaps that's exactly why their relationship has endured so quietly and solidly. With no children, and his wife divide their time between quiet homes in California and Texas, where he immerses himself in collecting vintage cars, guitars, and strange pieces of art. Those close to him describe Gibbons as meticulous, reserved, fond of order, and someone who dislikes being disturbed. It's no wonder he's stayed clear of scandals or the kind of viral soundbites many rockers of his generation have become known for. One of his most well-known passions outside of music is custom cars. His 1948 Cadillac, dubbed Cadzilla, a concept he envisioned and helped design, has become a legend in American car culture. Gibbons doesn't just collect cars, he sees each one as a work of art, a metal riff, as he once described. Cars are like guitars. They need to have the right tone, a soulful design, and they need to be respected if you want them to take you far. Many have asked why he and Dusty Hill kept their beards so long and why they never strayed from that iconic image for decades. Billy would simply smile and say, "Because beards don't lie, if you let it grow long enough, it'll tell you what's real." No flash, no need to prove anything. Gibbons has shaped his personal life the same way he plays music, in time, with soul, and without caring what anyone thinks. Perhaps that's why, after half a century in the chaos of rock culture, he's still himself. A guitar legend born from Texas dust, carrying the heart of a man who knows what enough looks like. Billy Gibbons never tried to make people remember him. He simply chose to live in a way that if someone happens to think of him, they might smile and say, "That was a good man." And for a life that's passed through so many stages, maybe that's already enough. Legacy and influence. Not as flashy as Eddie Van Halen, not as technically flamboyant as Steve Vai, and certainly not the kind to shout for recognition like many other guitarists. Billy Gibbons chose a different path, where his guitar doesn't race, but glides slowly like a road trip through the dusty highways of the American South. And it is precisely this quietness that has made him one of the most influential guitarists in American rock history. Gibbons' playing style is a fusion of tradition and instinct. He draws from the deep well of blues, a language old but full of feeling, adds the signature boogie groove of the South, sprinkles in bit of Marshall amp growl and deliberately dirty tone. But what sets him apart isn't speed or difficulty, it's restraint. Billy Gibbons knows when to play, and more importantly, when not to. Music isn't about what you play, it's about what you don't play, Billy once said during a workshop. In an age where many artists measure their influence by views and followers, Gibbons remains faithful to a primal music philosophy. Sound must have emotion and the artist must have identity. That's what has made him a role model for generations of guitarists. Dave Grohl, Jack White, Dan Auerbach, the Black Keys, even John Mayer all have publicly expressed admiration for Billy Gibbons. Not just for his technique, but for his integrity in musical choices. And his influence extends beyond guitarists. Under Gibbons' leadership, ZZ Top became a pop culture icon. The image of two long-bearded cowboys cruising in a red Cadillac in MTV videos became a defining symbol of the 80s. These visuals still appear in films, commercials, even video games, turning Gibbons into not just an artist, but a brand that embodies a distinctly American spirit, cool, simple, and uncompromising. A central piece of Gibbons' legacy is his 1959 Gibson Les Paul, known as Pearly Gates, the guitar behind countless legendary riffs. Gibson later reissued it as a signature model, and it became one of the most sought-after guitars in the collector world. Beyond music, Gibbons has made his mark in design, vintage cars, and fashion. He's collaborated with custom car shops, eyewear brands, and even appeared on popular TV shows. But no matter where he turns up, he remains unmistakably himself. Long beard, dark shades, cowboy hat, as if to say, who I am was shaped long ago. There's no need to change. And that is Billy Gibbons' greatest power. He doesn't chase the times, yet he stands firm within them. He doesn't need to shout to be remembered. He just needs to play one note and the world falls silent. Present life. At an age when many artists have retired or are living off the legacy of their past, Billy Gibbons remains firmly rooted on stage, a tireless craftsman who simply refuses to slow down. After the heartbreaking loss of his longtime bandmate Dusty Hill in 2021, he didn't choose rest or retreat. Instead, he honored his promise by continuing to tour with ZZ Top across the US and abroad. For him, each performance is a tribute to the past, to the audience, and to a friend who can no longer stand beside him. Beyond keeping ZZ Top alive, Gibbons has sustained an energetic solo career. From Perfecto Mundo 2015 with Afro-Cuban flavors to the traditional grit of the Big Bad Blues, 2018 and the desert-infused textures of Hardware, 2021, each solo album has been a quiet but profound experiment. He doesn't repeat himself, yet never betrays his roots. It's a rare kind of flexibility for an artist whose career spans over half a century. In 2024 and 2025, Gibbons continues to prove that age is not a limitation. It's fuel for deeper, more authentic music. He released the single, Living It Up Down in Texas, contributed to the soundtrack for the TV series Landman and is preparing to drop his fourth solo album. Meanwhile, ZZ Top is planning their first new studio record in over 2 decades. Still, Billy Gibbons is far from done with the road. He toured with the BFGs in early 2025 and is now leading ZZ Top through the Elevation Tour in the summer, playing over 50 dates across North America. Even when drummer Frank Beard had to step back due to health issues, Gibbons steered the band forward, just as he has through so many changes over the decades, never losing direction. There are no political messages, no loud calls to action. Gibbons inspires through calm by staying true to the music and by living a simple philosophy. Music doesn't stop. It just shifts quietly. And I haven't hit that shift yet. And so, even at 75, Billy Gibbons hasn't left the stage. He stays, not for the lights, not for the cheers, but because it's the only place where his music truly comes alive. Billy Gibbons has never been a loud man. He doesn't stomp across the stage or flail his arms like some of his rock peers. He simply stands, calm, long-bearded, left hand stroking the strings, right hand picking each riff like he's pouring whiskey slowly into a thick glass. But it's this very slowness and composure that has made Gibbons an irreplaceable figure in the history of American music. In a world where artists often trade identity for market trends, he chose to stay true to the music that first stirred his soul. Raw blues, southern groove, and dusty guitar tones. He didn't change to match the times. Rather, the times had to shift to accept his style. For over half a century, Billy Gibbons has not only led ZZ Top through every shift in the music industry, but also defined a way of life, honest, composed, and grounded. No scandals, no